Desde 2013, el señor Chiesa se ha desempeñado como director ejecutivo adjunto del Pacific Disaster Center, el PDC, y durante los últimos 20 años también ha ocupado los puestos de director, recursos de datos e información y director de información en el centro. Ha sido responsable del establecimiento del entorno de datos geoespaciales empresariales de PDC, así como el desarrollo del Atlas de Peligros Globales, del centro y del servicio de intercambio de información geoespacial de gestión de desastres alojado en PDC. Actualmente es responsable de las implementaciones internacionales de aplicación Disaster Aware de PDC. Tiene más de 30 años de experiencia desarrollando y administrando productos empresariales y aplicaciones de servicios, tecnologías de información geoespacial y ha participado activamente en actividades de gestión de desastres en la región de Asia-Pacífico durante las últimas 2 décadas. Apoya los esfuerzos regionales del Grupo de Trabajo de Preparación para Emergencias del APEC y el Comité de Gestión de Desastres de la ASEAN. Su trabajo también lo ha llevado a Europa, Centro y Sudamérica y también en África. El señor Chiesa es miembro activo de asociaciones profesionales regionales e internacionales, ha sido miembro de la Junta Directiva del Consejo Coordinador de Información Geográfica de Hawái y fue presidente anterior del Consejo de Navegantes, también conocido como Junta Directiva del Pacific Risk Management Ohana Primo. Su trabajo ha sido ampliamente reconocido, recibiendo tanto el premio al logro especial en GIS, SIC, del ESRI, como el premio de presidente del HICHIC. Tiene títulos de la Universidad de Michigan y de la Universidad de Arizona, con MBA. Con ustedes, with you, it's going to be Chris Chiesa, all yours. You have 35, 40 minutes time. After your speech, I will make a short, abstract, resumed size of that what you have talking about, and then we will continue with the questions and the comments of the people who are listening to us. All yours. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Aloha, buenos dias o buenas tardes. Gracias por invitarme. Voy a hablo en inglés porque mi español es muy malo. Thank you. It's very much a pleasure to be here. Let me start by sharing my screen and my presentation. It looks like you should be able to see my screen.
Yes, just go on. Everything is perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to provide, in the time that's available, I'll provide a little bit of an overview of the Pacific Disaster Center, our mission, and some of our activities. And then I want to jump into our Disaster Aware platform, and I will actually do a demonstration of one version of Disaster Aware, EMOPS. It's a version of Disaster Aware that PDC hosts. And of course, we'll leave some time for questions and answers. Minimize that, okay. Pacific Disaster Center uses and applies science, information, technology to help disaster managers and executives around the world make informed decisions to reduce disaster risk, prepare for, respond to disasters. Earlier this year, we celebrated our 25th anniversary. We are about 60 or 70 staff, primarily in Hawaii, but we do have staff in North America, in South America, in Asia, as well as one in Europe. We engage a number of partners around the world and have activities, have had and currently have hundreds of activities and help those people respond to thousands of disasters. We ourselves are managed by the University of Hawaii and have been for about the last 15 years. Our approach is really to integrate and leverage and take advantage of all of the capabilities that are in place in terms of observation systems, satellite systems, and other networks of measurement systems, analytical models, computing platforms, GIS and visualization software. But our principal focus is bringing those together to help decision makers make more effective decisions, faster, more timely, more accurate decisions. As I've mentioned, we have access to a lot of data, whether that's remote sensing satellite data, social media, model data, baseline data. We bring that into our disaster-aware environment to help visualize it, to help turn the streams of data into actionable information, really simplifying the process for our users, whether they're policymakers or elected officials or disaster managers or business executives. I'm going to illustrate that a little bit in this slide, and then of course I hope to illustrate that even more so live with our disaster-aware platform. So we're all aware of the information, and there's a lot of information out there. It's really how to harness it. So there are, hurricane advisories, earthquake advisories, tsunami advisories, fire advisories, the list goes on. Most of them are good at telling you that some event is happening at a particular place at a particular time, but not necessarily whether there'll be any consequences. So this information isn't necessarily actionable or even really understandable in some cases. So our job is to take things that are labeled as data and information and make those understandable to the people who need to understand them. We take these bulletins, we develop routines to automatically bring that into a single environment, so you don't have to go to 6 or 8 or 10 different websites to understand the hazards and the weather and population of an area. We put that into a risk and exposure context. So again, if a earthquake happens, but it's not in a populated or built area, perhaps that's not something that I need to immediately respond to. This helps us understand when and where we need to focus our attention. We bring in analytical models that help us estimate impacts to people and to built infrastructure. We have alerting mechanisms that will share that information through our own application, through social media. And we allow our partners to share information in terms of their situation, their damage assessment reports, and so forth, so that the entire community is better informed about what is taking place and what additional actions are needed. The disaster-aware platform has been in development nearly since the existence of PDC, certainly more than 20 years, and it evolves significantly each year. If I were to do a training session on disaster aware, it would, we could take a day to learn about it. Of course, we don't have that time right now, but there are a lot of features in there, and I talked about a few of them. And what I want to do is highlight a couple of them that are new. Some of you may actually be familiar with disaster aware or EMOPS. Others of you may not be, but I want to talk about a few new capabilities that we're really excited about. One of them is what we call Smart Alert. So you can see on the screen and kind of in the center of that image, there are a lot of disasters taking place, a lot of large hazards that have occurred around the world every day. And if you were to get every single one of them, you'd spend most of your time looking at the screen trying to decide if you need to pay attention to that. That really would defeat the purpose. So what we let users do is sort of dial in the exact conditions that they're looking for, where in the world, what types of hazards, what severity of hazards, and how they want to receive that by email, by SMS. In some cases, we've customized to other alerting applications. That capability has been around for a year or two, a couple of years, I guess. and it's constantly improving. One of the things that we've added to it, of course, if you're a national disaster manager, your area of interest is your country and the areas immediately around your country. But in some cases, you're interested in moving assets. You've got people moving, you've got response teams moving. Maybe you have, from a business perspective, maybe you have a fleet of vehicles, or you have your executives traveling. So we've now allowed the area of interest to move around with that user, so we can actually get alert. Your users, our users, can get alerted based on their updating location information. Very powerful, both in the public sector, which we primarily support, as well as the private sector, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. The other thing that has really advanced in PDC over the last 3 to 5 years and continues to do so is quantifying and assessing the impacts and the needs associated with it. So it's one thing for me to tell you that there's a large earthquake that's taken place or a volcanic eruption taking place, but it's another to really understand how many people are experiencing that and how many people need assistance. So we've done a lot of work in putting together impact assessments and needs assessments based on international standards, sphere guidelines. And you can see toward the center of this graphic, you can see my cursor, what this is telling me is this particular typhoon may be felt by or experienced by about 9 million people, but of those, 3 million are in the most severe category of that, and about 1 million of those, 961,000, are most vulnerable when you look at different socioeconomic parameters. So we're able to narrow down and focus on, it's still a lot of people, 960,000 people, but it's 1/10 of those that might ultimately experience it. So it allows us to focus, or allows our partners to focus their energies and their time, their attention on the most critical, most vulnerable areas. That is supported by something called the All Hazards Impact Model, or AIM, and we're really happy to announce that AIM 3.0 has been launched earlier this year. AIM 2.0 is about a 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer resolution globally, so that's pretty significant. We've now been able to take that to a 30 meter by 30 meter resolution, or nearly 1,000 times better, 1,000 times more information. It has information on population, demographics broken down by age and gender, as well as built infrastructure, schools, hospitals, etc. We're taking all of that and rolling that into yet a new capability called Event Brief that's going to bring together the hazard information, the exposure information, and other related information like news stories, weather forecasts, travel advisories, and even live cameras. It'll be an interactive capability that's launched from Disaster Aware. It's in its final testing phase right now. It'll be released at some point within the next month. So if you're a disaster user, a future disaster user, look forward to using that in the very, very near future. Who uses our system? Ultimately, the answer is, a lot of people around the world. At national levels, we have many countries or national disaster management organizations or civil society, Red Cross, etc. At the US, it's used within the federal government by our Defense Department to help deliver relief materials to our partners, by our FEMA, our National Disaster Management Organization, embassies, internationally by many UN organizations, UN OCHA, UN World Food Program, even the Atomic Energy Agency is using it. I've bolded and highlighted a couple: Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines. They're actually using customized versions of Disasterware that we've nationalized for them. Their language, their data, their user community, they're actually administering those systems. You'll also notice on the right-hand side, ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. It's the body that includes the 10 countries of Southeast Asia. they have a humanitarian assistance center or AHA center. They're also using a customized version of Disaster Aware. We have a mobile application called Disaster Alert that has more than 2 million users. I want to just go into a little bit more about the Disaster Aware and how we've implemented it in countries like Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, before I jump into the demonstration. So we're currently toward the end of a program. You'll see there it ends in September of this year, funded by USAID to help us advance the efforts in Southeast Asia, both at the regional level with the AHA Center and nationally with some of the countries that I've mentioned. And I won't go into this in this slide in too much detail, but I really want to use it as a jumping off point to show that we started a program with the Philippines that was new. The work with Indonesia and Thailand had been existing. We provided some new versions, but the Philippines, we went through the entire process. And I just want to share that with you so you get a sense of appreciation for what goes into that process. Of course, there's some technical work. You know, we have to deploy, in this case, we call it PhilAware. We deploy that at their national disaster management organization called the Office of Civil Defense. There's a lot of stakeholder involvement in terms of defining the requirements and identifying the data. User training, et cetera. We then build concept of operations and standard operating procedures so that it can really be operationalized and institutionalized in that country, in that agency and its partner agencies. We deliver training and also train the trainer so that we can develop a cadre of trainers that can continue to deliver training to new staff. We've developed an e-learning module that sits on top of a very popular platform called Moodle. So we have a number of leave behinds that really allow civil defense and their partners to keep the system up and running, as well as the users trained. We work on data sharing agreements, both regionally with the AHA Center and then nationally with many of the agencies whose responsibility is to develop data. So their seismic agency, their volcano agency, hydromet service, statistics office, et cetera, census office. And we build that database. We've also done some really interesting work bringing in crowdsourced data through a partner that we first were introduced to in Indonesia called Yayasan Pada Bencana, or the Foundation for Hazard Mapping. And they've adapted their tools from Indonesia to the Philippines. And we now have citizens who are able to use very simple, the tools they already use, the software they already use, like Twitter and Facebook, and they can get engaged and say, hey, it's flooding in my neighborhood right now, and the water is up to my waist, or it's up to my shoulders, and they can very easily report that. And that has been really valuable to get that on the ground, but validated information and sort of structured information. These systems, I'm just showing a screenshot here. So we talked about DMRS at the AHA Center, ENAware in Indonesia, ThaiAware in Thailand, and PhilAware in the Philippines. They all look similar, of course, because they're built on the Disasterware platform. But again, they're nationalized, their language, their data, their users, their alerting criteria. Of course, I'll share this presentation, so I wanted to just include some URLs in it. So there's more information you can get at pdc.org, backed sheets. You can get information on the work that we've done on this program and others. And then there's a lot of training resources or learning resources available on a companion site that we've developed called disasterware.org. It's really the site for all of our disasterwares, whether it's our EMOps or AHA Center's DMRS. There's training materials, videos, other instructional guides, so that's available as well. What I'm going to do now is switch to just a quick orientation, maybe not even a full demonstration of Disaster Aware. You can see the URL there, emops.pdc.org. You can go there. I'm going to actually start there. I'm going to start by logging in. But before I log in, so you see emops.pdc.org, you'll notice that you can click this button to request access. So if you are a disaster manager or you're with an organization that supports disaster managers, go ahead and click there, fill out the information, and within about a day, you should have an account on EMOps. So I'm going to log in. Oops. Oh, there we go. Okay. Just a little slowness here. And you'll see it's logged into a certain area. This is, I do a lot of work in there's Hawaii and in Southeast Asia. So it's logged into that part of the world. I'll show you in a little bit how you can customize that. But I wanted to start here because I noticed that there is a tropical cyclone or a hurricane in the West Pacific. It doesn't look like it will make landfall in Japan. That's good. But I want to show you how we can find out a little bit more about what's going on there. So the first thing I can do is look at what the alerting envelope is for that hazard. So anybody that asked to be alerted to hurricanes and they're in that area or they've identified that area, they'll get an alert about that. And you'll see that now, of course, because it's not going to make landfall, we haven't done a lot of work at the center on this storm, but I do want to show you that there's some information that's automatically generated. So one of them is this impact report. And what it says at the bottom is there's no significant land or population, so it hasn't filled that out. But if it was going to make landfall in Japan, that's where we'd start to see some of the impact numbers that I showed you in the demo, or in the slideshow rather. And they're automatically produced. So every time there's a forecast update, about every 6 hours, a new version of this is generated. We can also see that there's some partner provided situation reports about 2 days ago, one from FEMA, our National Disaster Management Organization, and another one from the Department of Homeland Security, which is really FEMA's parent organization. So information is provided. I think what I'll do at this point, since I know most of you are in Central or South America or in Ecuador in particular, so let me show you another capability called bookmarks. And I created some bookmarks yesterday that allow me to both zoom to a location of interest as well as turn on the layers that I'm interested in. So I told it to turn on the active hazards. At PDC right now, we're tracking 2 active volcanoes, including Reventador outside of Quito. So I can turn that on or click on that. And again, I can get information on our alerting area. So if you're in that area, you'll receive alerts related to Reventador. Of course, it's been in active state for a long time, so there's many analytical products, but I want to show you some of the automated products. So we saw one for a hurricane. In this case, we receive information from an alerting station. Oh, in fact, I think this just got updated. I was looking at one just a few minutes ago. Let me navigate back. Yeah, this was updated 16 minutes ago. I really want to show you this one. It's a little more interesting to look at, but this is what the observed ash plume was at that time about 6 hours ago. And it shows you information, in this case, not a significant amount, but if they're in nearby airports or seaports, it shows that, includes that information. It's derived from bulletins. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. It's derived from bulletins that we also automatically receive. And I'll show you what those look like. So here's that same one, not the one that was 20 minutes ago, but the one that was 6 hours ago. This is what the bulletin looks like. So you can receive this and you can attempt to make sense of that. You could, of course, or you can go to this graphic, and that's the graphical representation of everything that was in the bullet. Here's the message. Volcano ash observed from satellite data and webcam, etc. Here's the plume. Here's the distance. Here's how many people are within those circles. So within the larger circle, there are nearly 3.5 million people, population density, etc. So we produce a lot of automated products so that they're out there quickly, consistently, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of what time it is in Hawaii. Just going to go to another bookmark or two, and then I think I'll pause for questions. We can also bring in information like emergency services, and I'll turn on the legend here, but you'll see that we have turned on airports, and I've turned on seaports. I've also turned on emergency operations centers. In this case, I think they are some warehouses, stockpiled warehouses, it looks like. So that this level of information is available globally. If we went to different countries, we'd see at least this information. In some cases, we've had active engagements with other countries, and I showed you some in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand. We've also done work in Central and South America and in the Caribbean, and I want to just show you the results of some of that work in Peru. So I created this bookmark yesterday as well. Working with the government of Peru, we were able to bring in a significant amount of data, and I'm going to just navigate those kind of one layer at a time. We brought in information on emergency services. So I've got police stations. I'll leave those off. Kind of peel the onion one layer at a time. Fire stations. Hospitals. Other health centers. And some hazard and vulnerability zones, and I'm going to just zoom in a little bit. Of course, we're looking at Lima, and I've got two of those turned on. One is the tsunami hazard zone, so they've delineated the zone for tsunamis, as well as the seismic or earthquake hazard zone. Let's turn that on and off. I'll turn the tsunami on again by itself so you can see it. So now I can start to understand things like, what hospitals might be impacted by a tsunami, and we can see there's several hospitals in the tsunami hazard zone or adjacent to the tsunami hazard zone, and similarly with police stations, fire stations, etc. So we can start to get a sense of what critical infrastructure might be impacted. We get message of a large earthquake, and we're not even sure if a tsunami is going to be generated. And then especially if we do think a tsunami is going to be generated, we can immediately use that information to alert facilities in these areas and say, hey, you are under a tsunami threat right now. There's a lot of capabilities, and I wish I had 2 hours and I would demonstrate more, but I think it gives you the sense of information related to the hazards, to the built environment, to the population, to the facilities like police, fire, hospitals that would be able to provide services during those times. I want to just touch on operational activities. So about a month ago, or at the beginning of June, nearly a month ago, there was a typhoon that was approaching Taiwan, and I didn't think to add the track to it, but there was a track that was going along this, or it was just going to touch the southern tip of Taiwan, but then move offshore. So we put together this graphic really just for demonstration purposes only, but to show what you can start to do. So we identified an area that would be of highest concern because the typhoon was going to pass over that. We were going to, we had said here, Taipei, the most populated area. Let's just put that in a monitoring situation right now, but not on an alert status. Stamped it with the time and when the next update would be available. And these are called bookmarks. This bookmark itself could be shared. And go into here and say share it. It copies it. I can send that to any other user. There's about 15,000, 16,000 users of EMOPS. I can send it to any other user and say, hey, look at that. We can both be looking at the same picture at the same time. We can be looking at the hazard and the infrastructure and our operational plans, monitoring, evacuation, et cetera, all at the same time. So that's really, I think, the power of this from a disaster manager standpoint is it's not only telling you about hazards, but you can develop your operational response plans and share them with your response partners, maybe from the national level down to the state or department or district level, or adjacent districts can share that information with each other. So that's a little bit of an overview of disasterware. Of course, there are other features and functions and thousands. I guess let me just go to this. Even within EMOPS itself, there's nearly 6,000 layers of data, 5,900 layers of data globally at the level that I showed you in Ecuador, and in some cases, much, much richer. So we hope that over time and with a partnership with Serum, that we're able to fill in that picture in Ecuador as well. Let me pause there. I think I'm just about at the time for questions.
Thank you. First of all, applause, of course. You may don't hear it, but there are many people listening and watching that what you do and what you have presented. We have a few questions. The first of all, mine. In order to give a little bit an overview also for the people who listen to us. I mean, what you have done here is a next level of GIS-related hazard awareness. And this is so beautiful and so informative for people who are living really in hazard areas. Most of the people in the world, in a certain way, especially along the Pacific or close to the Pacific Ocean, are having the one or the other disaster in front of the backyard. I mean, there are so many things. I have a very, let's call it interesting question for you. Of course, okay. It's a very speculative question, but from that what you have shown, if we would have all this kind of tools and all this kind of information you have today in 2021, if you would have them like 17 years ago, and I say it's 17 and not 18 or so, in the time of Christmas of 2004, where we have this big impact of the tsunami in Southeastern Asia. Of course, it's a very speculative question, and of course, you may vary with your answer, but sure. What do you think, how much of the percentage of the 100% of the loss of the people, I think there were around 240,000 people who lost their life, how many we would have been able to rescue or to save with that what you do today?
That is an interesting question, and I'm not sure that I'm going to give a percentage, but let me offer a couple of things.
Please.
Certainly, it seems that all of the people outside of Sumatra, West Sumatra, would have had plenty of time to evacuate. The people in Thailand, the people in Sri Lanka, India. It's definitely a challenge in places like Sumatra, where there's the tsunami wave arrived in about 20 minutes from the event itself. And it would be difficult to think about evacuating that many people. I mean, immediately the roads systems got blocked, and some of the structures just they were damaged. They were damaged by the earthquake itself, so you couldn't do the vertical evacuation. But I think a sizable percentage of the population, probably most of the people outside of Indonesia would have, most of the people really outside of Aceh province within West Sumatra would have, their lives could have easily been spared. And I think it's a powerful way to think about the value of something like this when you put it in those terms. We're working with the government of Indonesia to actually implement some mass notification. So right now, the alerts that I talked about, they go to the subscribers of Disasterware or the users of our mobile platform. What we want to do, but we know not everyone's ever going to use that platform. We want to tie that into SMS notifications, radio notifications, and so forth. And I think we'll be ultimately successful in doing that. That's really when, when you get to that last mile or last kilometer, that's, I think, when you're able to do the most work. Simplify the message and let people know what the hazard condition is and what action to take. Evacuate, stay sheltered, move up to the 3rd floor of a building, because you have to tell them more than just there's a tsunami. You have to tell them what to do. And that's the part that we're working with right now. But I think, I know it will make a difference ultimately. And we've seen successful outcomes in the times since then, because people get that alert notification so much quicker now than 17 years ago.
Exactly. In fact, I wouldn't say it this way that you are stealing my words, but this is exactly my words when I say that people have to know what to do when something is striking them, especially when we have an impact of a tsunami. And we have different regions here in Ecuador, and I say it every day. Please, guys, it's not only an elevated area, it could be a seismic and tsunami resistant building which is right next to you. So you do not need to run 1,000 meters rather than 50 and go to the 3rd or 4th floor and you are safe. And this are things people do not know. And this kind of simplification of very often very complicated, very technical forms from the Smithsonian and from VAAC and so on, behind that application you have would effectively save lives. And this is, I think, the most important sense of that, what you do, saving life. We may lose the one or the other part of a strategic infrastructure, but we will save life with that, what you do. And I hope that what you do, of course, is going to be implemented here in Ecuador. I mean, we're going to have soon, from this year on, a PDC here. And we hope that you are going to come here and explain us the one other thing, how things work, so people like me and others can train other people, and other people can train other people. So the application is going to be very important and very fundamental use of everybody's life every day. In a certain way,
we're excited about we're excited about that. As I mentioned on one of my first slides, we're 60 or 70 people, about halfway around the world from you, not quite halfway, but close, quarter of the way around. So it's really working with partner institutions, building capacity, getting similar, getting the messaging right and delivering it to the people. That's how we'll ultimately conquer this or solve this, not by PDC, but through the network of like-minded organizations. So we're excited about the MOU that we'll be signing later today and the collaboration that we expect to come out of this.
There's a question from Giovanni Vaca Oramas. I will translate it. It's an indirect question to you. I think it's a general question. He asked that if the telephonic operators, as we have them here, Porta, Movistar, and CNT, these are the three which are giving, there's another one, there's a 4th one, but anyway, if they would be able to participate or collaborate in a CERAM, in a design of an early alert system for cellular phones, which helps to reduce the loss of human lives in front of an imminent risk. Of course, it's a question for you, but it's a general question, of course.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, absolutely. In fact, that is the key, that you have to work with those cellular, mobile telecom companies, providers. But we have a partner who has implemented solutions in Europe and Australia, and we have them working with us in Indonesia to take a look at doing exactly that. Getting the notice to come, the notice and the message to come from disaster aware, go to the mobile operators. They know where every device, generally speaking, they know where the device is. They know what mobile tower is powering that cell phone. And so they can not only get the message out, but they can get the message out only to those users that are reasonably at harm. So you avoid getting everybody messaged and ignoring it. And instead, with that, remember that yellow alert area, you can superimpose that yellow alert area over their mobile towers, and you can say only alert those people that are receiving signals from this mobile tower. And we demonstrated that in Indonesia. So the technology is there, the ability is there. Not to say anything negative about Indonesia, because I think you'd say the same thing about most other countries. There was a challenge there's a challenge right now, but I think eventually we'll overcome it in getting the mobile operators to work with the National Disaster Management Organization and with PDC and our partner to put that equipment in place. But we were able to demonstrate it. We were able to go in, create that hazard polygon, and it sent alerts. It documents who received those, who maybe had left one mobile area and gone into another area. So which messages failed and why. It was a very comprehensive ability to do that. And so I think with cooperation at the government level, because that's often required, and at that mobile operator level, it's definitely doable. It's a proposition that would have high likelihood of succeeding if you have cooperation with and the National Disaster Organization. So the national government, National Disaster Management, and the telcos. Sometimes they're privately owned, sometimes they're publicly, sometimes it's a public-private.
And of course, a willing public, because I mean,
yes,
the public is not aware of the tools, of the benefits, and is not educated, then everything is not helping at all. Indonesia is a very good example, but I may tell you, as you probably know, there was a purpose to alert people for tsunami impacts, and from Germany, a very big project, and they have installed different kind of instruments there, and people stole the batteries and they didn't work. This is something which has to be changed. Of course, it's not only there. In Ecuador, we have similar problems. And I think in many, as you said, in many different countries with similar problems, we have similar issues. I
think touching on one part of it, not focusing on the theft of the batteries and so forth, but I think just the general public awareness and general public, and maybe that needs to start in schools. You know, I'm almost 60. When I was 6 years old, 50 years ago, in schools, they started teaching about the dangers of smoking, the hazards of smoking in the United States. And it took about a generation, but our smoking rates declined because you started informing people. And we went home. My dad was a smoker at the time. Dad, please stop smoking. So I think programs that they're not going to be overnight, but you have to educate the public, and there has to be public outreach. Otherwise, I can't see my phone. Otherwise, I'm going to get a message and I'm not going to know what to do with it. Hey, somebody sent me a message. I didn't even know they were sending these messages. So there has to be a large awareness and educational campaign targeted to the people that you're trying to reach, which is the general public, the rural public, perhaps, maybe not even in some cases, right? I mean, so people that they're not college educated. They may not have finished high school. But you've got to, maybe they don't even read. It has to be put into pictorials. So there's a whole science around how to communicate hazards and how to create awareness of that capability. And I think that's key to the success of any of these programs, not just the technology part of it, but it's the socialization, institutionalization of it.
Absolutely. Let me just summarize a little bit of that, what you have said in the answers, and also a little bit about your talk in Spanish, and please stay tuned for the one or the other question which may still follow here.
Yeah, I will.
Como han visto, compañeros, compañeras, aquí tenemos algo realmente sensacional. Es una forma de una aplicación a través, en base de sistema de información geográfica, donde diferentes agencias que sí producen datos y están en tiempo real viendo qué pasa con un otro desastre o amenaza, por ejemplo, la llegada de ceniza del volcán Revenador, el impacto de un tsunami, por ejemplo, en Indonesia y otros sitios, como han visto en Lima, cómo pudo Chris enseñarles cómo el alcance del riesgo sísmico, el alcance del impacto de un tsunami, la distribución de los hospitales, de centros de salud y otras cosas más que son importantes en una área de desastre potencial, cómo todo esto puede resumirse a través de esas aplicaciones que justamente el Pacific Disaster Center, a través de ellos, está trabajando. Y cuando alguien recibe esas informaciones y obviamente sabe manejar esa información suavizada, ni siquiera técnica, puede utilizarla y en este caso salvar su vida. Mi pregunta al inicio era, ¿cuánto porcentaje de la gente que han muerto debido del gran impacto del tsunami en 2004, en Navidad de 2004, allá en Asia, podría rescatarse si tendríamos toda esa información y esas aplicaciones en ese tiempo? Y él dice que pienso yo también un considerable porcentaje, es decir, más de la mitad. Murieron 240,000 personas con esto que tiene Chris hoy en día y va a firmar un convenio más tarde a través de Carlos Villasís entre Cerama y PDC. Se podrían realmente rescatarse la vida, salvarse la vida más de 100,000 personas de lo que pasó allá. Y cosas que pasaron en Asia no son muy lejos de esto que puede pasar aquí en nuestro país. Por lo tanto, esto que hace Chris es realmente fundamental para que con la tecnología de hoy en día, con el conocimiento de hoy en día que hace Pacific Disaster Center a través de Chris, puede salvar vidas en cantidades. Let me see if there are new questions arising. Just a lot of applause. Carlos Villasís saying that what I was saying, that there will be the agreement signing later on in the afternoon. And just once again, excellent initiatives, felicitations, congratulations. And for myself, I mean, I cannot say anything else. This is great what you do. And once again, thank you for being with us here. This is a gem of this presentations of this 4 days of our, visiting card in a certain way, presentation card of that what we would like to do in the future, that what you do already. And I hope that you stay with us a little bit later and decide.
I will. Yeah, I'll be joining the roundtable. Yeah, I want to thank everybody as well, and of course all of my colleagues who aren't on the call. But it takes a team to do this. That's the people that work at PDC and our partners, and we're really excited to be extending that partnership to the university and to the center. And I think I know there's a lot of like-mindedness. Of course, we know Carlos well. I think there's a lot of like-mindedness in approach, and where there's a will, there's a way. And so we'll keep working together. And congratulations on the launching of the center and this symposium. And I look forward to joining the roundtable a little bit later today.
Thank you. It's true. It's a work effort from equally minded people and professionals who do not anything else than to try to save lives in the future.
Yes.
Thanks again, and I hope to welcome you sometime here in Ecuador. I mean, minds like you, we need them here too, if at least for a few days, and in the same time you may approach Galapagos and see something you may do not have in Hawaii.
I have not been to Galapagos. I've been to Quito. I'm going to see if this works. I want to show you the picture on my wall. You'll recognize it, I think.
Oh yeah, this is the historic center of Quito, of course.
Yes, that's right. So I've been there. Lovely city. Look forward to getting back and enjoying more of it. And I'm going to say aloha, gracias, adios.
Mahalo, gracias. Okay, thank you very much. And
Okay.
I'll see you a little bit later. Thanks again.
Hasta luego.
Excellent talk, excellent information. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Ciao.